Hi, this week we are waking up to victory. I'm here at the Beach Hill Chapel where there has been a congregation victoriously worshipping since 1724.
This reading is taken from Revelations chapter 21, verses 1 to 8. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." He who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." He said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and all liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death." The next reading is from John 16, verse 33. "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world."
What do I mean by waking up to victory? How do we live a victorious life? Can you think back to a time where you have felt victorious in maybe a sport or a competition, dancing or baking or giant vegetables, Sudoku, or climbing up a difficult mountain trail? Or perhaps you took pride in your work. I remember walking past the thrumming extractor fans and the hissing gases because it reminded me that we made medicines here that healed people. Or maybe you're creative and you produce beautiful things. Do the children that you nurture make you proud? Remember something you really feel proud about. Perhaps you used to swim competitively for your local swimming club like I did. I remember hitting that wall and being unable to get out of the pool because I had given the race everything I'd got. And yet, 5 minutes later, I would be marching to the music, listening to the clapping, getting up onto the rostrum to receive my medal. Adulation. Do you remember feeling like that? Or you may be sitting there thinking, I've never won anything at all. Or maybe then you've been in a crowd of thousands cheering on your team. I can remember being there, "Come on, you Irish!" as the ball would come out of the back of the scrum, along the line, get to the winger, who, with a burst of speed, would cross the line, try. While sport and competition and training and hard graft are good things, they can become focused upon me, on our selfish need to look good, that hit of winning. Have you seen the 2017 film, I, Tonya? It's a dark comedy based on the life of Tonya Harding, the American figure skating champion 1989 to 92. But she was the first American woman to land a triple axel jump successfully in competition, and only the second woman in history to do so. But after a couple of years of declining performances, her husband and others went to jail for assaulting a competitor who was badly injured. Tonya admitted conspiracy. And there's this pitiful scene towards the end of the film in which she is banned from figure skating, in which she says, "I'd rather do the jail time and be able to compete again. I don't know how to do anything else." She was so focused on winning that when it stopped, she lost her purpose in life. Could you be focused on winning to the exclusion of your responsibilities? Or that you're missing out on life in all its fullness, as Jesus promised? I certainly did. Maybe like me, as a young man, your mind is fixed on the here and now. You don't much think about what might happen in the future. You enjoy present things, and you enjoy having people look up to you, trying to ignore the same fears and feelings as everybody else. Or does life now seem like a constant struggle that's dragging you down? Are you enduring life? On the other extreme, you might be so fixed on Christ's return that you're insensitive to the feelings of people around you. Best not get too involved in this world. Where are you? But then, how do we live a victorious life? Let's look at Jesus. Always a good place to start. The Bible doesn't say if Jesus and the 12 disciples played sport, but if they did, I guess that would have to be rugby league. But the Bible does say that Jesus won the greatest victory in history. And it wasn't done in front of a crowd that were clapping with adulation. It was done with jeers and bloody torture. And he did not win that victory for himself, but for us. Jesus lived a victorious life. He knew where he came from. I and the Father are one. And he knew where he was going. I am going to the Father. Because of the joy that he could see ahead, he could endure being nailed to a piece of wood. I have told you this so that my joy can be in you and that your joy will be complete. But this did not make him remote from other people. At the tomb of his friend Lazarus, Jesus wept. He made strong friendships. He helped and he encouraged, and he still does that today. That's you and me. He ignored the pressure to get wealthy. Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man, that's a biblical name for Jesus, the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. He rejected becoming popular. After a difficult teaching session, many of his disciples did not follow him. And he gave up his life for a greater purpose, aged only 33. I lay down my life for the flock. That's you and me. He chose to go to his crucifixion. When he was arrested, he said, "Do you think that I could not call upon my Father, and he would at once put at my disposal 12 legions of angels? But how then would the prophecies be fulfilled that say it must happen like this?" 12 legions is almost half the strength of the total Roman Empire. He chose to go to his crucifixion. Is our vision too small? I won the race. We've gone up a division. I've been promoted. I managed to see the children after all these months. I managed to have some time on my own after all these months. Spring is here. We can be happy with small successes, and then we can be disappointed by the troughs between them. Jesus, however, focused on the big success and therefore avoided the little lows. He saw ahead of him the time when God makes everything new. Jesus is there. As we heard in the reading earlier, when everything is made perfect as God had planned it, when God's dwelling place is now among the people and he will dwell with them, when there are no more tears. When these things were achieved, because Jesus chose to leave heaven to teach, to live as an example, and to be whipped and to die savagely for us. By focusing on this glorious future, the peaks and troughs of our current existence are overshadowed because of the gift from Jesus. This vision of the future comes from the second from today's readings, and both were written by Jesus' youngest disciple, called John. No one special, a fisherman. He and his brother, by Jesus, were called the sons of thunder, angry young men, I suppose. John spent 3 years learning from Jesus. He went into the empty tomb. He met the risen Jesus. He wrote a biography of him in the book we simply call John. In the first reading from this biography, John quotes Jesus as saying, "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." Jesus does not say that we may have trouble. Jesus promises us that we will have trouble. But he has overcome the world. The world in this context means all the powers and authorities, everything that's opposed to God. He has overcome them, and therefore they do not have power over the lives of his followers. When Jesus was nailed to that cross and propped up high in the sun to die, he is victorious at the very moment that he seemed defeated, because he chose to be there. And so it is with us. We may feel like we're losing, but we are never defeated because of Jesus' gift. This may be beginning to sound like Christian jargon. So what, in practical terms, can you and I do today? The first answer is nothing. We do not have to do anything to gain eternal life with God, because Jesus has done it all. We just have to accept it. And the young fisherman called John did this. John saw Jesus again as an old man. And Jesus showed John this future vision and told him to write it down for future generations. That's you and me. In the triumphant reading that we had earlier, we hear that at the end of time, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. He who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. And he said to me, that's John, it is done. I am the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. That is the victory before us at the end of time. If you're a Christian, go look yourself up in the Bible. A few chapters earlier in John's vision, in chapter 7, John is with Jesus and God in the throne room of heaven. And he says, after this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one can count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and in front of the Lamb. The Lamb there is Jesus. This great multitude are the Christians. We will be in that huge crowd, singing, come on, Jesus! Jesus has done everything necessary for us to be what human beings were designed to be, and to spend time loving God together. We just have to have faith in him. Now, someone defined faith as believing in something that you know is not true. Well, I look at it like this. My wife, Rosie, and I have loved each other for 44 years. And because of my experience of her love and care in that time, I know that if I go somewhere and she agrees to pick me up at 11, she will do everything in her power to pick me up at 11. I trust her. I have faith in her. I don't have faith in something. I have faith in a person I love and have grown to trust. And it's the same with Jesus. Because of his care and his love, I can trust him. I have faith in him. And the Bible says we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. Because of this future, we can look beyond our present troubles, which we will have, to the glorious outcome in eternity. So, when two early Christians, Paul and Silas, had been beaten savagely and were put in prison, we read, about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. That's living victoriously. Yes, I hear you say, but they were great people in the Bible. They don't live here and now. 2 years ago, I first met Jude when she came to an Alpha course, and she hit us with a difficult question. Why did God let his beautiful boy die? The course ended, and despite numerous invitations, we did not see her again. We learned later that after Alpha, she had a series of illnesses. She was forced to leave the job that she loved, and she now has multiple cancers. But she became a Christian. She met Jesus in her kitchen, and she described to us how he comes to her in the night when she's lonely or in great pain. She is a bubble of joy, a blessing to those of us in her Zoom group that meet to pray and learn about Jesus and learn how to love each other. That is victorious living. As many of you know, 3 years ago, I was rushed to hospital and told that I would not leave there until I had had triple heart bypass surgery. I had a week to prepare for an operation that the literature said caused disability or death in 4% of patients. Now, 4% doesn't seem very much until you realise you might not be one of the 96%. A stressful time for my wife. I was at great peace with God. Somehow I knew He would be with me, whatever the outcome. And subsequently, I've adopted the phrase, ready to go, happy to stay. The second answer to the question, how can we live a victorious life, is to ask ourselves some questions. What terrible thing is happening in my life at the moment that will make sense in the light of Christ's victory eventually? God is working out His purposes. Or how would a greater awareness of Jesus' victory have an impact on the way I spend my time, my money? What impact would that have on me in my friends' lives, in my relationships? Ask Jesus to help you understand and to act. If you're not a Christian, or if you're unsure, go and read a biography of Jesus' life. The shortest one is called Mark, and it's 25 pages long, and you can finish it in a couple of hours. It's a fast, breathless race through Jesus' life. For Christians, many Christians are put off by reading this vision of John, this book of Revelation, because of all the symbolism. But Jesus specifically told John to write it down for future generations, and that includes us. Read it through in one go and get a big picture. But even if you're not going to read the whole of Revelation, read the first chapter where the glorious Jesus in His risen form appears. And if you're a Christian or not, do go and read the last 2 chapters from which one of today's readings come. Right at the end of the Bible. It's incredible, the end of time, what the future is going to be like. And it is so exciting. Here is a victory greater than anything we can have on earth. When we see God face to face, because we accept the gift that Jesus has given us. And that gift does more in our lives now on earth. His victory increasingly shapes our lives, the way we think, the way we act, the joy we have, the love we share here. Serving God on earth can be so satisfying, but it will be tiny in comparison when we die, and literally we will wake up to victory. We will be in that numberless crowd of people before the throne of God, doing what we were designed to do, praising God forever. See you there.